World Fitness Project tests fitness better than the CrossFit Games. Is that right? Yes, indeed. That is correct. I am reading that correctly, and so are you. So, here is the point of the title. The World Fitness Project this year and last year has and had the potential to test fitness better than the CrossFit Games. And here's why. Here's a quick resume of who I am. We got 8+ years of affiliate coaching in North Dakota, that being at CrossFit Tundra and CrossFit Voxay. I've made the rounds at a bunch of competitions in North America, that being Granite Games Pro Individual, Wadapalooza RX Individual, 3 years as a team athlete with CrossFit Undefeated, and then finally World Fitness Project Mesa Challenger. I've done a bunch of stuff, and I've been around for a while, since 2013, and that's who I am. You can look me up if you want to find more information. Let's talk about the topic of this video now that you know me and I gave you the cliff notes of who I am. So this is work capacity graph that CrossFit has given out. I think I pulled this from the level one, but each workout that we have, and if you've taken your level one, you know this, but for the people that don't, for each workout that you do, it tests a different type of work capacity, and the shorter the workout, the more potential per minute you have for power output, and the longer the workout you do, your power per minute is going to be less, but you're probably going to do more work capacity, or you're going to do more work over that time potentially. So anyways, that is the work capacity graph, and that's our goal, is to increase work capacity across broad time and modal domains. Next, we have the sickness, wellness, fitness continuum here, and trust me, this will all come together slowly but surely. So we have the goal here, us as CrossFitters and who do the methodology, we want to try and get our athletes all the way into the fitness part of the continuum. And that way, if anything happens, they fall, they break a leg, whatever, they might slowly move over, to wellness if something happens, but we want to try and push them back into fitness as much as we can. And that is sort of the goal. And we don't want to just do this for one day or one weekend or 1 week or 1 month. We want to do this year over year and continue to push them into fitness until death, where they will eventually go all the way here. And over time, you might see that as people get more sick and die eventually. So with that being said, here's the graph for work capacity across broad time and modal domains over years as well. So the 2D graph here has now turned into a 3D graph when you incorporate age. And over the years, as you get older, your work capacity, sadly, will get decreased. And so with that being said, we have this part of the methodology here where we talk about, aging gracefully and showing fitness throughout the years. But yet the CrossFit Games is a pressure cooker event where it happens in one weekend, right? And you might be getting where I'm getting at here in a bit. So here's the CrossFit Games season. We have the Open, which is a self-enclosed test where once you move on to quarterfinals, everything you did in the Open does not matter. And they test a very specific type of workout. Then we go to quarterfinals, where again, you're going to test different types of workouts in quarterfinals, and nothing you did in the Open really matters, and the point structure goes to zero. And then from there, you go to semifinals, and then from the semifinals to the games. Each one is self-enclosed, and the leaderboard resets each time you pass the filter, and you get to move on to the next stage. As opposed to the World Fitness Project, where each leaderboard is self-enclosed, but when the weekend is over, you get points allocated to your point total going towards the end of the season. So it's more of a tour structure. Think PGA, think NASCAR, stuff like that, F1, stuff like that. So you accumulate points throughout the season, and at the end of the season, the person with the most points wins. So that's how World Fitness Project does it, where throughout the year, you have to show your fitness, and at the end of the year, you accumulate all the points, and whoever has the most wins. So with that being said here, let's take a look at the CrossFit Games. They had 10 workouts to crown the fittest on earth. Everyone went into the games with 0 points, and at the end of the 10 events, the person with the most points wins. And so they had 10 workouts to test fitness, as opposed to the World Fitness Project, where on Tour Stop 1, they tested 7 workouts. On Tour Stop 2, they tested 7 workouts. At the World Fitness Finals in Copenhagen, they tested 10 workouts here. You have, in total, 24 workouts that the World Fitness Project used to test their athletes and to crown their champion, as opposed to the CrossFit Games 10, right? And so that's sort of the point of the video here, is that the CrossFit Games only has 10 tests to sort of define who the fittest is, as opposed to the World Fitness Project. They have 24 tests to actually define who their champion is. So, I like the way that World Fitness Project is doing this. And I think if Will Morad, the programmer of World Fitness Project, wanted to have a well-rounded test of fitness, he probably could do that. And he could have a really well-rounded test for all 3 tour stops and crown the fittest on earth and actually do that. But I don't think that's necessarily his goal. I think his goal is to entertain and to have good workouts for the athletes and the fans. And I don't necessarily think that the test of fitness is necessarily something that he wants to do right now. I think he wants to put in a 1 rep max for each workout to kind of tie together the season as a whole theme. You know, each tour stop we test a 1 rep max. That's the theme for the weightlifting this year, or whatever. Maybe next year it's there's speed ladders, and there'll be 5 lifts that you have to do, and the fastest time wins, and blah blah blah. And there's just a different theme for the weightlifting. Maybe, I don't know, but that's sort of what Will Morad is doing, and I don't think he's necessarily trying to test for the fittest and have a perfect test of fitness, as opposed to the CrossFit Games, which they say that that's what they want to do. But if that's what they want to do, they are certainly leaving out some certain tests and that they've done previously in the season off the table by not incorporating those workouts into the finalized leaderboard to crown the champion. So, for instance, here, and this is just an idea that I've had bouncing around in my head for a while. If we had the CrossFit Open, and we, at the end of the CrossFit Open, we had, the finalized leaderboard. Going into the games, let's say you took all the games qualifiers once the final spot is allocated. You created an open leaderboard with only the games athletes that qualified, and you had James Sprague win the CrossFit Open with 100 points, and you had Cale Lehman in second, and you had Jason Hopper in third, and Justin Medeiros in fourth. What you would do is you would kick out Cale Lehman, and you'd move him out of there because he didn't qualify to the games. So then that would bump Jason Hopper up into second place, and he would get 96 points, and Justin Medeiros 92 points, and James Sprague with 100 points. And that's sort of how you would allocate points going into the CrossFit Games, where the CrossFit Games, we look at the workouts and we see, workout 1 was the open, and James got 100 points because he won. So on and so forth down the leaderboard until you get to 30th place, and whatever the points end up being, that's what it is. Then you have semifinals, and this is where it gets fun, I think. For semifinals, let's say you win your semifinal to qualify to the games, and you get 200 points. And you take second place and you get 160 points. And at the Mayhem Classic, if you take third and you get a qualifying spot from there, you get 120 points. And so first place will go into the CrossFit Games with 80 more points than the third place at Mayhem Classic. What this does is it incentivizes wins at the semifinal level, and it incentivizes athletes to go to another semifinal if they do not win, right? So let's say James Sprague goes to NorCal Classic and takes second place, and Jason Hopper goes to Mayhem Classic and takes first place. Do we really think James Sprague is not going to try to go to another semifinal if he takes second place and allow Jason Hopper to have a 40-point lead over him, or a 36-point lead over him going into the CrossFit Games? No way. James Sprague is going to go into the last chance qualifier and try to win that thing, and try to get that 200 points, so that when he goes into the games, he ends up having a 4-point lead over Jason Hopper into the games, because every point matters, every second counts. You get it. So, and we can even do that for quarterfinals, where maybe quarterfinals is 150 points, or semifinals ends up being 300 points, and quarterfinals is 200 points, and the open is 100 points, and you sort of get more points as you go on through the season, and as the filtering structure gets allows less and less athletes in. So that's sort of the point of this, is to incentivize athletes to compete hard throughout the entire season, and not just take the open off, because we say that, oh, the open matters and it's so important, we love the open and everyone should try really hard. But these pro athletes, they're not trying during the open like they could, right? They're not peaking for it, they're not, uh, trying super duper duper hard. But I promise you this, if the points actually mattered and your placing in the open actually had an effect at the CrossFit Games, these athletes would be trying super hard to win the open and to maximize their points for the CrossFit Games. Same with quarterfinals, same with semifinals. And it gives the media more to talk about. It creates more storylines, and it blends the methodology and the games closer, and it actually, makes the athletes have to have longevity throughout the year and not just peak for one weekend. I think this would help blend both the games and the methodology, and maybe help CrossFit in the long run. So that's sort of my idea with this point structure, and it could change. You could allocate the points differently, but that's sort of the idea, is that, the games doesn't just test the 10 events at the games. They test, the open and the semifinals, and that matters, and that goes towards, who wins at the end. So let me know what you guys think when it comes to that. I think the one thing that I would also like to talk about is just thematically, because I'm a programming nerd. I listen to Shut Up and Scribble and stuff like that, and I love programming. Thematically, how would this affect programming if Castro were to program the CrossFit Games? If he knew that, okay, I tested 95-pound thrusters for high reps, I'm probably not going to test that at the CrossFit Games. For quarterfinals, we probably don't need to test that either. If we're going to do another thruster, we probably should save it for semifinals and not do it for quarterfinals. How would that have affected previous years, right? If we had, let's say, 2018 regionals, or 2017 regionals, where there was no barbell, would he have programmed more barbells at the CrossFit Games because he hadn't tested enough during regionals? The year that they had no burpees at throughout the whole season of the CrossFit Games, what would he have done there? Or sorry, how would that affect the athletes and the data on the leaderboard? When you have an entire season where Josh Bridges isn't getting that burpee workout, does that negatively affect him when you have every workout not having a burpee? Does that affect him for each stage? And how many points does he lose out versus a person who maybe, compared to the field, isn't that great at burpees? Does that person jump up 5 spots, 3 spots, because he's just historically not as good at burpees, but this year, the theme was no burpees? How would Castro handle this? And I don't know. I think this is a really neat way to sort of think about fitness throughout a year and a competitive structure. And maybe, I don't think CrossFit would want to do this because the WFP is sort of doing this already. Um, you know, but I think it's neat, and I think it blends the methodology a little bit more to with the CrossFit Games, and makes the picture a little more clear when we talk to our gym goers and our athletes and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think I'm gonna end the video there. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are. How would you program the games if you had to program all of it, and it all had to blend together to create a very precise test of fitness over however many events the open, quarterfinals, semifinals, and the games would be? Would you like this structure, or do you like the pressure cooker style that the CrossFit Games is, where it's just one weekend, and if you have the sniffles, sorry buddy, you're done, like, you don't win? Let me know what you think. Thanks. Bye.